don't. Don't do, don't do that. Don't pull faces, don't tease the cat. Don't pick your ears, don't be rude at school. Who do they think I am? Some kind of fool? One day they'll say, don't put toffee in my coffee. Don't pour gravy on the baby. Don't put beer in his ear. And don't stick your toes up your nose. Don't put confetti on your spaghetti. And don't squash peas on your knees. Don't put ants in your pants. Don't put mustard in your custard. Don't chuck jelly at the telly. And don't throw fruit at a computer. Don't throw fruit at a computer. Don't what? Don't throw fruit at a computer. Don't what? Don't throw fruit at a computer. Who do they think I am? Some kind of fool?
Good morning and welcome back to the first writing lesson of this new half term, Monday the 22nd of Feb. Did you enjoy that? It was very nice, I thought, of Michael Rosen to pay us a visit this morning, to come in specially and perform that poem for us. That is one of my favourite poems. I love that Michael Rosen poem, Don't. And actually, do you know, sometimes during this lockdown, I have felt a bit like throwing fruit at a computer. So I get where he's coming from there. Yeah, so what's your favourite poem? Have a little think. This week, we're going to be doing something very different in our English lessons. We are going to be writing poetry. And what's great about this week is every day, actually, this week, we're going to be writing a different poem. Now, you might think, that sounds a bit hard, writing a poem every day. But don't fear, because I don't think you're going to find it hard at all. Because every day, I'm going to give you a poem from a poet, children's poets, mainly. No, all children's poets, I think. No, mainly, I should say. And we're going to look at the poem first, and then we're going to try and write our own version of the same poem. You might be thinking, what on earth is she talking about? It probably sounds a bit confusing, but it will all make sense as we get going today. Let me just pick up my trusty whiteboard pen. So, yeah, I've said here, each day we're going to use a poem by a different poet to inspire us to write our own. But English lessons would not be English lessons without a little bit of nasty writing. So, the first nasty writing task for this new half term is all about apostrophes. Now, I know this is something you learnt before you even got to year 6, but it's something we can often forget to use in our own writing, and it's something that might be very useful in the writing that we're going to be doing today. So what we're thinking about specifically today is using apostrophes to show possession, to show that something belongs to somebody, or that something belongs to something. So I've given you some examples here. These two first examples are from the poem we're going to look at today. A chameleon's tongue, a fox's ear tip. The tongue belongs to the chameleon. The ear tip belongs to the fox. And then I put a couple of different ones here. The girl's room, the teacher's coffee machine. When do we put the apostrophe before the S, and when does it go after the S? What's the difference? Have a think. Have a think of the answer. Let's see if you're right. If the noun is singular, so there's just one of them, for example, a chameleon or a fox, it goes before the S. But if the noun is plural, so there's more than one, like the girls or the teachers, it goes after the S. I'm sure you all knew that anyway. So what I want you to do today is to write 2 or 3 lines that could be in a poem. They don't have to go together though, they can all be separate, describing any natural thing you can see or hear when you're outside. So it could be in the garden, on the street or beach, in the park. And I've got some examples here that I've started. I've got a blackbird's song. Oops, sorry. So there's one blackbird, so my apostrophe goes before the S. children's laughter. Now, I've put a little note over here because children is plural, isn't it? We would have a child, but lots of children. And people is plural. We would have a person, but lots of people. But they are exceptions, annoyingly. There's always exceptions, aren't there? So we don't put the apostrophe after the S with children or with people. So those are just two you have to learn separately. And then I've got another one here, a wave's ripple. So there's one wave. So the song belongs to the blackbird, the laughter belongs to the children, the ripple belongs to the wave. So I'm just going to show you, this is my nasty writing today, a blackbird song. How could I finish that? Maybe I heard it. I've been hearing them a lot as I've been cycling through Worthing, which means spring's coming. A blackbird song. I don't want to just say I heard a blackbird song, do I? It's a bit boring. How could the blackbird song come from the tree to my ear? Maybe on the wind, on the breeze? Floated on the wind, floated on the breeze. A blackbird song. I'm going to use floated on the breeze. Floated on the breeze. There we are. Now I could stop there because it says I have to write, oh no, it says I've got to write 2 to 3. So I need to do one more and then I'm done. Or I could write 3 or 4 or 5. It's up to you, depending how inspired you feel. So maybe pause the video there, have a go at the nasty writing, lines that use apostrophes to show possession. Restart the video, and here's our main lesson for today. We are learning today to use metaphor in our poems. Now, some of you might already be thinking, oh my goodness, I've forgotten what metaphor means after half term. So don't worry, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the first thing you have to do today is to read, and this is on the daily learning page for you. But you can also listen to this poem. It's by Rachel Rooney, and she actually is a poet who lives in Brighton, and she writes a lot of fantastic poetry for children. This poem's called 0 to 9. If you click on the link on the daily learning page, if I just show you actually what it looks like, so I can do it here as well. It takes you to this website, I can't remember what it's called, Children's Poetry Archive. So it's a great website because it has loads and loads of poems for children. It's amazing, isn't it, what exists out there on the internet for you to look at and listen to. And all you have to do, and here's a picture of Rachel Rooney, all you have to do is click on the big play button there and you can listen to Rachel Rooney reading the poem. So you could be looking at the words and listening at the same time if you wanted. So let me go back to the board. So read and listen to the poem. And the question is, what do the different images in the poem represent? So you might want to pause the video now, listen to the poem, or read the poem. Restart the video. Hello, welcome back. And what do the different images in the poem represent? Now, there kind of is a bit of a clue in the title, and there is a picture down here as well. But look, a ring made of gold, a donut and whole, something that's nothing, that's easy to roll. A periscope raised, a walking stick, the cut of a cake, and a candle's new wick. So basically, in every 2 lines, Rachel Rooney is describing a different number, the numbers 0 to 9. So she's looked at the number 0, the number 0, and thought, what does that remind me of? Well, it reminds me of a ring. It reminds me of a donut. It reminds me of a hole. It reminds me of nothing, but it's easy to roll because it looks a bit like a hoop. So she's thought of all the things it reminds her of, and then she's turned that into 2 lines of poetry. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it as well as Rachel Rooney. I'm not a poet, but I'm going to have a good go, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a minute. So, the poetic device Rachel Rooney's using all the way through the poem is metaphor, because the number 0 isn't actually a ring made of gold. It isn't actually a donut. It isn't actually something you can roll, but she's pretending it is. She's using metaphor. So, your task for today is to write your own poem. Now, you can either use the numbers 0 to 9, like Rachel Rooney. So I've put that, this is your checklist for today, your success criteria. I've put that up here because I think that's the slightly less challenging version. If you would like to just do your own poem about 0 to 9, that's fine. And describe what each number looks like using adjectives, using describing words. So you might have one line for each number, or 2 lines, like Rachel Rooney. Or, what I would like most of you to try and do today is to write 1 to 2 lines for each of the letters in your name. So I'm going to show you how I might start a poem for my surname. So I'm going to write my letters out here. So I'm going to do it in capitals. I think that's easier. And then I'm going to look at those letters and think about what they remind me of, what they look like. So I'm going to try and use metaphor, like Rachel Rooney did. And I have to remember to use my apostrophes from my nasty writing and my commas and full stops. And what I need to do all the time I'm writing my poem is read it out loud and check the rhythm. Does it work? Do the lines work together? If you really want to challenge yourself, you could try and have some rhyming in there, like Rachel Rooney does. And Rachel Rooney uses some adjectives with hyphens in the middle, like flat-headed. So that would be another great challenge if you could get some of those in there. So let me show you. I'm not going to just start trying to write my poem. It's too difficult. So first of all, I'm going to look at the letter J and think, what does that remind me of? I might even do a little mind map, like this, in my notebook. So J, for me, it looks a bit like, you know the handle of an umbrella? Can you see that? So I'm going to put umbrella handle. And then it also reminds me a bit, you know when a cat is sitting on a wall and there's its tail hanging down? So I'm going to put cat's tail. That's enough, I think, for the first letter. Now my second letter is O. So I think that Rachel Rooney might have had this. I don't think it matters if I magpie. I'm going to imagine it looks a bit like a donut. What else? I made some notes earlier. What else did I think it looked like? Oh yes, I thought that it looked a bit like, you know when you're looking at a bucket, the top of a bucket. So I was going to put that there, bucket. I'll just do one more just to get me going. I'm going to do H over here. H. Now I thought H looked a bit like, I don't know if any of you play or watch rugby, but I thought it looked a bit like the goal in rugby where people try to kick the ball over to score a try. So I was going to somehow liken that to a rugby goal. And then I thought it also looked a bit like 2 people standing and shaking hands. So people shaking hands. So I think you have to do that before you get going, don't you? You can't just start writing your poem, it's too tricky. So I would do that for all the letters in my name. I could have 2 images for each, or just 1, or 3, or 4, it's up to you. And now I'm going to have a go at starting my poem. So I'm going to start with J, because that's the first letter of my name. And when I write my poem, I might still have this at the top, so the reader knows what I'm describing. So, let me think. I started off thinking, okay, a cat sat on a wall, an umbrella's handle. It doesn't sound great, does it? A cat sat on a wall, an umbrella's handle. And then I thought, would it be more interesting if it was a witch's cat? So, and then I thought, handle, I don't know, I don't like that word finishing my second line. So I thought maybe I'll start with it. An umbrella's handle. Shall I have that as my first line? Oh, a cat's tail. A witch's cat's tail, I was going to say. So if I had my notebook in front, if I had more space in my notebook, I would be writing all these ideas down and then kind of editing as I go. So I might start off saying, I don't know, a cat's tail sat on a wall and an umbrella's handle. No, put lines through that. Let's start with an umbrella's handle, a cat's tail sat on a wall. I'm going to make it a witch's cat. So I might keep changing my mind as I go. So I'm going to start with an umbrella's handle. Oh, I need to remember my apostrophe. An umbrella's handle. Now, instead of saying sat on a wall at the end, I think it's going to be too long. So a witch's, apostrophe, 2 apostrophes, look, a witch's cat, and then a witch's cat's, that's quite confusing, tail. So I think I'll have a comma at the end of that line and a full stop there, because that is J. An umbrella's handle, a witch's cat's tail. So can you see, I started off with these very simple ideas. I've thought of different ways to say them, put them, and then I've ended up with 2 lines, and I think the rhythm sounds okay. An umbrella's handle, a witch's cat's tail. Now I'm going to move on to O. A chocolate donut. I'm going to make it chocolate. A chocolate donut. I could have a delicious donut, couldn't I? Or a scrumptious donut, or a tempting donut. A chocolate donut. The top of a bucket. Doesn't sound great. I mean, it doesn't have to rhyme, your poem. But I don't like the sound of that so far. So I could keep writing and come back and edit it later, or I might edit it now if I can. An umbrella's handle, a witch's cat's tail, a chocolate donut, the top of a pail. I could use the word pail instead of bucket, because that's got the same meaning, hasn't it? And then it rhymes with tail. The top of a pail. Now I need to talk about my H. So it looks like a rugby goal waiting for a try. A rugby goal waiting for a try. Waiting a try, waiting for a try. It's a bit long. A rugby goal, awaiting a try. Comma. So I'm going to start a new line. Oh, I know. And then two people shaking hands. Oh, I could have although I've put here 1 to 2 lines, I could have 3 for J. A rugby goal awaiting a try, two people shaking hands and saying goodbye. As they say goodbye, before they say goodbye. A rugby goal awaiting a try, two people shaking hands and saying goodbye. I think that works. And I can have my and at the beginning of the line with a capital, because you can do that in poetry. And then I'm going to have a full stop. So I've done 3 letters. Let's see what it sounds like. An umbrella's handle, a witch's cat's tail, a chocolate donut, the top of a pail, a rugby goal awaiting a try, two people shake hands. That sounds better. Two people shake hands and say, as they say goodbye. So can you see how with poetry, you're never going to get it right first time. It's going to take quite a lot of reading it through and practicing it and seeing how it sounds. But really today, this is your poem. You can have 1 line, 2, 3 per letter. It can rhyme, it doesn't have to rhyme. Don't try and make it rhyme and put weird words in that spoil the poem. Only make it rhyme if you can. Yeah, you have so much more freedom when you write poetry. So have fun with that today. And we would love to see any actually that you're really proud of, because it would be great to share some somewhere if you're proud of what you've written and you're pleased with it. Okay, have fun with that today, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another poem.